Hey there, hope you're good. I really appreciate you watching this video and listening to me ramble on about habits. I am going to riff on a lot of different subjects today around habit formation. I'm going to bring some kind of research and education from some of the books I've read over the years, and also my own experiences as a person navigating life, very much like you, and a coach who's been coaching people in some way in habit formation now for the last 10 years. I would really encourage you to watch this in a place where you can digest all the information and take notes of what you're going to do following this call. Okay, it's easy in this world of consumption to consume mindlessly. I would really encourage you to sit down and be present and really focus on what we're going to talk about here, because really that's the key of it, right? If you're not going to do that, and then nothing's going to change. Okay. What I want to do here is to really give you the tools and information to know how to improve your life day to day. Okay. I don't want to overwhelm you with technical stuff, etc., etc. I want to paint a clear picture of what I view as habits and habit formation and how you can start improving your life day to day. What we're going to cover today are a few things like mindset, really big one for me and my own experiences, your environment, the stages of a habit, how to start, stop habits, and your identity. There's going to be a number of other things we're going to go through, but broadly, that's what we're going to get into today. But first, what are my sources for this talk? So what I haven't listed here is my source. My main source is probably my own experiences in life in starting good habits and trying to stop bad habits. My second source is probably coaching people. Coached hundreds of people over the years, and had great success with many of them on habit formation, and others not so much. And there's definite trends on either side of that I've recognized over that time. My main reading on this subject has been Atomic Habits by James Clear. If you've not heard of him, I'd really encourage you to search him out on the internet and to look at his website and get that book. The book Atomic Habits really goes into detail into a lot of what we're going to talk about today, and will give you more and more clear, actionable tools on how you can improve your day-to-day life through habit formation. Also, some important reading for me that is part of this talk today is Stoic philosophy, some of the work by Brené Brown, who I absolutely love, Michael Singer, who wrote The Untethered Soul, and many others like Eckhart Tolle and people like that. So a real diverse group of people have contributed to some of my thinking on this subject. So first and foremost, it's really key to understand is that your habits define you. This quote here, there's some controversy about where it comes from, but there's some truth in it no matter what. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. I think it's really easy to go through life and to see people who we admire, who are excelling in, whether in like professional, personal life, and we look at them and go, well, that's luck, that's talent, etc., etc. But I guarantee you that each one of them has built up a series of habits and behaviors and resilience over the years that's got them to where they've got to. Okay. Very rarely in life do anyone get to that point of that, that excellence by just pure luck. They're generally there because they have built habits that have created that for them. And that's really key. If you understand, your habits are either going to build you up or they're going to break you down. We spend most of our waking hours on autopilot in this kind of habit mode. The reason for this is that for our brain, it's really energy efficient to kind of just go through the motions of we know what we're going to do day to day. I think they say about 70% of our day-to-day life is spent on autopilot, which is actually really scary. If you take a step back of that and apply that to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're like, well, so 70% of my life I'm actually on autopilot. It's actually really scary. So I think the key for me on this is to try and be conscious, be present as much as possible in our day-to-day lives, so we're not reverting especially to these less than optimal or bad habits. I would encourage you to kind of have a think about this as we talk about it now, and think about maybe the last time you drove to work, when you got up this morning, whether you were conscious of that, you were just going through the motions of brushing your teeth, etc., etc. Even at work, most of us spend our waking hours on autopilot. So, this isn't to kind of like scaremonger you into it, but it's just to be conscious is that that's the way we're hardwired. But when it comes to habit formation and change, what you've got to kind of accept as the price of admission is going to therefore be really, really hard, because you're constantly fighting against what you're genetically designed to do, which is be on habit mode. Okay. So when you're trying to introduce a new habit, it's always going to take a lot of effort. Same as when you're trying to get rid of a bad habit. And I think there's this common misconception now that, you do something for 28 days and it's a habit. It's absolute bullshit. It's been completely disproven. I think the last thing I read on it was it's more like 90 to 120 days. But even then, you're going to have events in life that are going to mess that up, break the flow of it, and mean that you have to start again. And that's just part of it. Okay. So I don't want to be the bearer of bad news here, but changing habits is hard, but it's really worthy of doing if you want to excel in any part of your life. So concept 1, tiny changes. Again, this is really from the James Clear book, but also from my own experiences myself and coaching people. We always think way too big. We always think we're going to be able to achieve so much more than we can. All right. And I love that quality in people. I think it's brilliant, especially when people want to get into coaching. They're like, oh, I want to change this, and this. But in my experience, we just set ourselves up for failure by overestimating what we think we can achieve in a short amount of time. So what I want to encourage you to start thinking about is making tiny, tiny changes. Start small, build, and then compounding is key to this concept. Okay. So with anyone when I coach now, it's always like, right, what's the one thing we're going to do in relation to habit formation? I generally won't change someone's morning routine, PM routine, lunchtime routine, stuff like that. We do one thing at a time, because it takes time and it takes energy and it takes effort, as we've just seen. So when you are, if you're navigating this journey by yourself, if you are thinking about introducing a good habit or removing a bad habit, I would encourage you to think of where you are now, where you want to be, right? And don't think you can just jump from here to here, but think of the stages that come in between that are going to build that momentum towards getting to this final place. And if that's going to take 6 months, it's going to take 6 months. Really, I always think with timescales, it's don't put a time scale on it, because you're going to set yourself up to fail then as well. If you say, well, in 6 months from now, I'm going to stop smoking. It's just, no, I am going to stop smoking, but these are the stages I'm going to need to go through. And you can only go on to the next stage once you've completed the first one. So gamify it almost, in a way. And really that is the key to it. It's compounding. Okay. So it's that building over time. That small habit then becomes a big habit. And before you know it, you've got that. Consistency is important for us to talk about here. Obviously, habit formation inherently relies upon a consistent behavior, right? If you're not doing it consistently, it's never going to become a habit. But equally, it's important to not fall into this trap of self-sabotage and shame when you don't hit it consistency first time, right? You're going to mess up, you're going to fail, but the key is to pick yourself up, move back on with it. And we're going to talk about some key concepts on that later on. And really, consistency for me is not measured in days and weeks, it's months and years. And that's really a concept I want you to take moving forward from here. So latent potential. This is a good thing for us to talk about in relation to the world we live in today. So if you think about the world we live in today, we expect everything to happen immediately with minimal effort, with no pain. Okay, that's the world we live in, right? We've got to accept that. But with regards to any habit, we have to understand that it takes a long time, a lot of effort to get where we want to get to. Okay. If we think about a good habit, for example, say if you want to make changes to your nutrition to improve your body composition, you cannot expect to eat one salad and lose 5% body fat. Okay. You're going to have to work a fair old amount of time, eat consistently, optimally based on what your goals are, where you are, and then you will see results. Every good habit I know is about kind of suffering in the moment, but then appreciating the gratification of it further on down the line. Just delayed gratification. Okay. Improvements especially improvements in fitness, energy levels, stuff like that. Going to bed earlier, for example, doesn't feel good in the moment, but feeling better the next day does. So there's delayed gratification to that. working out in the moment doesn't really ever feel that good, but the improvements for your fitness long term, when you're playing with your kids, where you can run for the train without feeling like you're going to die, like those things take time and they don't come in the moment. Equally, if you look at bad habit, say snacking, junk food, drink, drugs, even the immediate gratification is there. Feels bloody awesome, right? Feels awesome, but then long term, what's the effects of that? What's the long term effects of the, eating the crappy food, drinking too much, taking drugs? It's not good, right? So, really, what we're talking about here with latent potential is a habit has to become a habit before you see the benefit. I think too often, in my experience, people expect too much of an instant reward, and they give up. All right, and what you've got to realize that a plateau of latent potential is what you're really talking about here. Is that point where people have done it for a short amount of time, they haven't seen the return, so they just stop again because they've given up. All right, and I need you to smash through that. All right, if you look at anyone who's been successful in this world. There are outliers, people who get successful overnight, but a lot of people, especially in business, they have been grinding away for years. And actually, many of them have had many failures before that success happened. But we always kind of look at that point from success onwards and just think, well, they've been given this. But look at the hours they've put in to get there. Okay. And that's really what I want you to think about in terms of any kind of habit in life. You need to put the work in. You need to put the work in when no one's seeing you doing it. And you need to just keep grinding away. Just have a drink here. So this concept here is really something that is my own experience and also as a coach. Your mindset and mental state really, really affects your ability to make changes to your habits, whether that's bringing on good habits or removing bad habits. Starting with mental health, I noticed my own observations over the years when I've gone through periods of really poor mental health, depression, anxiety, all those kind of things. I've really defaulted to my bad habits. Okay, you're going to do that, right? It's what happens when you're suffering there because you're in a depleted, low state. All right, so really what I'm getting at here is if that's where you are right now, that's what you need to fix. Okay, it's no good, right? Thinking that a meal plan is the solution when you are suffering mentally. Okay, you need to take steps to get help professionally, start investigating yourself, take ownership of it. And from that place, you will then be able to get to a more balanced place where you can make these changes. But if right now you're really suffering mentally, you're really low, you're really depressed, whatever it is, it's going to be really, really hard for you to find the energy to make these changes. Okay. And my own noticing over the years is that when I am not fulfilled in what I'm doing in life, and what I've seen from people who are coaching is when they're generally not fulfilled in life, it's really common for me and for them and for people to go through this to really self-soothe and to really look for escape from life in bad habits. Okay. So I believe long term, the ultimate way to live this happy life with great habits is to be fulfilled. Because if you're fulfilled day to day, doing what you love, in everything you do in life, then you're going to have good habits, essentially, because you're not going to have to rely upon the immediate gratification of bad habits to get you out of where you are, right? And shame, big one for me, this and concept from Brené Brown is that we don't think we're worthy of these things and we carry that shame with us. And I really want you to remove that. You are worthy of all these things you want to achieve. And I think the sooner you can remove that idea of shame and unworthiness, the better chance there is for you to actually make some serious long-term positive changes. Lastly, for me, this concept of the non-negotiable or self-care is something I really want to push to you. Over the years, I've formed really good habits around exercise, so much so now that it's a non-negotiable in my day, like having a shower, brushing my teeth, etc., etc. And it's become that because I've just simply recognized over the years how positive it is for me and my mental health as well as physical health to do it. And I think what I really want to push with this idea is that self-care and taking time for yourself, if you're a busy parent, you're busy at your job, is something that you need to do. All right. Whether that is a 20-minute workout or an hour in the gym, I don't care what it is, but I need you to understand is that if you want to do this, you've got to put yourself first, okay? And if you're constantly going to live your life prioritizing everyone else other than you, you're really going to struggle with anything we talk about here, okay? Environment. So this is from James Clear, but again, my noticing over the years is that your environment really sets up your abilities to succeed or fail, whether that is building a good habit or removing a bad habit. Okay. So what I'm talking about here is the people you live around, what you surround yourself with, and the support systems you have in life. Okay. When we think about environment, let's talk about your house. Okay. And we talk about maybe the example of removing the bad habit of snacking on biscuits, right? If you go into your kitchen and every time you walk into your kitchen, you've got on the top there a biscuit barrel with loads of lovely biscuits in it. Do you think that environment is set up for you to not have those biscuits, or do you think it's set up for you to consume them? Okay. Whereas inversely, if you were to swap the biscuit barrel and just put on the top there a lovely bowl of fresh fruit, that environment, I would say, is a lot more conducive to being set up to make better choices and healthier options. One thing I always hear on this, especially with people with children and families, is, well, we need to have this stuff in the house because of X, Y, Z. And like, I'll be honest, I'm going to push back on that. I'm like, well, why the fuck are you giving those, your children those things? If you value them and love them as you do, then you shouldn't be giving them that crap either. Okay. And that sounds really brutal, but I don't, I'm at this point in my life, I'm a parent, I understand how it is. And yeah, you got to have some snack options for them. But I know now there are a lot better options you can have than loads of packs of Walker's crisps and chocolate and stuff all around the house. Okay. So don't think that is an excuse for you, because it isn't. Okay. So support systems is talking about your work environment, your friends, and those things around you that are going to support, or either support good habits or support bad habits. Okay, so we say circle of friends, right? So from my own experience over the years, I had issues in the past with drug taking, and one thing I noticed is that the friends I was around in that environment supported that lifestyle, but when I stopped those friendships, that made it a lot easier for me to stop that behavior. And sacrifices there that I don't have those friendships. But then if you look at what those friendships actually represented and brought to the table for me, they were never anything good long term. It felt good in the moment, but it didn't feel good long term. So really, you've got to look to support yourself with people around you who are going to be on board with what you want to do in life. Same with family, right? Especially in regards to like nutritional changes and stuff like that. If you are trying to make positive changes to your nutrition over the long term, your family, especially your partner, has got to be on board with it. I've coached people over the years whose partners almost like sabotage them along the way. And I need to tell you now that if that's happening to you, that's something that needs to change, either through conversation or an intervention, right? Your loved ones should want you to flourish. Okay. If they're not going to support you in that, then there's a conversation you need to have. So the 4 stages of habits. This is from James Clear again, so I'm absolutely ripping his stuff off here. So we think of any habit, whether it's creating a good habit, removing a bad habit, there's always 4 stages to it. There's a cue, there's a craving, there's a response, and there's a reward. Okay. So we talk about maybe a good habit first of all. If you were trying to introduce a new habit, you want to make it absolutely obvious that you want to do it, right? So if we think about eating more fruit, we'll go back to the fruit bowl thing. How do you want to make that obvious? We want to put that bowl of fruit right in the middle of the kitchen countertop where you see it all the time. How do you make it attractive? Well, you want nice looking fruit. You want manky apples and like crusty old oranges in there. You want some lovely fruit that you actually enjoy. Make it easy. It's there. It's readily available. You've got it, right? And the reward is it tastes good. So it's pretty easy for us to kind of get our head around that one, okay? Now, the opposite is true when we want to remove a bad habit. So let's go back to it. We'll talk about the bad habit a bit more in a minute and a specific one, but you want to make it invisible. So you want to make it, not front of mind, front of where you're seeing. You make it unattractive, which we'll talk about. Make it difficult to do. So you've got to go through steps to do it. and then make it unsatisfying. And this is largely what's going on in your head, and we'll talk about that next. So we're going to speak specifically about the removal of a bad habit, and it's probably in relation to snacking, which is one of the big ones I get, is to make it invisible. All right. So if it's snacking, junk food, etc., the first thing you need to do is remove it from your environment. All right. If you've got it in your house, you're going to eat it. This is something that comes from John Berardi, the guy who started Precision Nutrition. If the food is in your house, it's going to be eaten. If you don't have it in your house, it's going to be a lot harder for you to eat it because it's not there, right? So buy your willpower at the store, the supermarket, in English words, right? If you don't buy it, you can't eat it, right? And again, I want you to remove that. If you're coming at me with that excuse, well, I have to have it because this, you don't have to have it. No one needs to have junk food. If you can come back to this and give me an example when you need to have junk food, I will delete this, take back my words, and apologize profusely. Okay. So make it unattractive. Reframe your mindset, highlight the benefits around avoiding the bad habits, right? And I know this is hard in the moment, all right? But there is always a step between the desire and the action. Desire, action, right? You desire the bad food, and you just take action. And I really want you to try and think of breaking the chain between that, okay? One thing I've asked people to do or try to do over the years is to set a 5-minute timer between the desire and then the action. Okay, so if you think, right, I want a chocolate bar, cool, bang, 5-minute timer, sit with it. Do I really want it? What's going to happen if I do this? Does this align with my goals, etc.? You're not going to always win that, right? Every once in a while you're like, look, I'm really low, I need a chocolate bar today, let's have it, right? But you might find time after time you're able to break that chain, and the more you do that, the more I believe you can have that kind of self-belief in yourself that you can make those changes. Third, make it difficult. So increase friction. So again, if we're going to that, the junk food, the snacks, etc., if you don't have them in the house, it's going to be really hard for you to get them. So you're going to have to go down to the store, get in the car, go for a walk, etc., to go and do it. Again, I'm not saying that's not always going to happen, and I've been guilty of it in the past, especially when I used to live back down in Eastbourne. I was like 2 minutes away from junk food from everywhere. So, that didn't always work for me. But looking back on that time, that was because of my mental state and fulfillment in life. Fourth, make it unsatisfying. And this is largely about that reframing of your mindset. Okay. And I think you've just got to keep telling yourself that story of what happens if I have this? What happens if I have this, right? If I have this chocolate bar, if I eat this tub of Ben & Jerry's, if I have a big dirty pizza, what happens? It will feel good in the moment, but what happens after, right? And you've got to just keep going through it, okay? And the more times you do it, the more times you to kind of, put yourself in that mindset, the more chances there are of you actually resisting pursuing that bad habit. So when we talk about habit linking, what we're talking about here is the fact that we do spend a lot of our time day to day on this kind of like autopilot mode. And there are kind of three parts of the day, but this is really clear. Okay, there's the morning routine, there's your bedtime routine, and there's also like your work time throughout the day. And when it comes to especially introducing good habits, I would say one of the best things you can do is leverage that kind of link or that kind of chain of behaviors that's already happening, and then try and slot something in there to make it an additional habit. Okay, so say in the morning you get up, you have a glass of water, you brush your teeth, etc. You probably do all those things on autopilot, but if you try and implement between that, get up, have a drink of water, brush your teeth, 5 minutes of meditation, right? Initially, it's going to feel clunky, but over time, you've kind of bookended that new habit with two existing habits. And so you're going to build that kind of like chain or link over time. You go, right, I drank my water, now I meditate. Well, I didn't meditate, now I brush my teeth. And then after time, you can add to that and refine it as you wish. Same in the evening, have a routine where you write, plug my phone in, put it on the side, away from my bed, 8 p.m. And then maybe you get into bed, right? But maybe in between that, you kind of do a bit of journaling or something like that, whatever it is you want to do, right? It's again, putting something between the links and chains that already exist, right? Why do we do this? Because it makes it a load easier to implement and introduce new habits and stick to them. Your new identity. Now, this for me is a big one over the years and something that's really helped me and helped a lot of people I've coached. Okay. We live our lives telling ourselves a story about who we are based on what we've done. Right. And we accept that. We accept that version of events because we've got a lot of data to support the fact that that's who we are. But I need to tell you that every day you start with the opportunity to live an entirely different life as a different person. You have the ability, you have the will in the moment to make a choice about what you're going to do and who you're going to be. And to default to the previous history just based on what's happened is really, really lazy. Okay. And I'm not calling you out on it. I do it all the time. And it's what we are taught to do in life, right? We build this story about who we become, but we don't believe that we can change. And I need to tell you that you can change. Okay. And what is one of the best ways that you can do that? But I want you to picture yourself 6 to 12 months from now being this, realized version of the person you think you can be and you want to be. And I want you to start living your life now as if you were that person. Play the role. We spend all of our lives, or most of our lives, playing a role. I'm playing the role of a coach. I'm playing the role of a dad. I'm playing the role of a partner, right? We have different kind of expectations in those things. So just start playing the role of that future you. And then when it comes to any decision, just think about, right, what would a future Glenn do? Would he smash a Domino's and a Ben and Jerry's? No, because he wants to feel good and look good, right? It's not going to work every time. And sometimes it's going to you're going to like, oh, right, I didn't work this time. But it's one of the most powerful things you can do to start making those changes. All right. You need to believe, though. You need to believe that you can do it. And I do believe you can do it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be coaching and I'd be doing something else. If I didn't believe that people could change, I wouldn't be doing what I do. Okay. So just start living that new identity so you can change, you can choose. So I'm going to summarize now with a few bits and a few kind of key takeaways for you, which we've hinted at here, but I just want to set you up in a real kind of realistic but positive way moving forward. Changing your habits is always really, really hard to do. It takes conscious effort, time after time after time, and you are going to fuck up. Okay. If you don't fuck up, then I'd be absolutely amazed and good for you, right? But there are going to be times that you fuck up. And one of the key concepts I want you to get your head around here is that when you do, I want you to own it, see it coming, accept it, and then pick yourself up and move on. I think one of the common things I've seen over the years, and this is probably the best example I can give of this, is nutrition and binge eating and eating crap food, is that for some reason we have this mentality that if we make one bad choice around food, we should just kind of hit the fuck it mode and make a load more. Okay. The analogy I often use with people on this is like, imagine you've got one, you've come out to your car in the morning, you find one of your tires is punctured. You don't go around and puncture the other three. You go, well, I'll fix that one and just move on, right? So in relation to this, when you set up to, start a new habit or remove a bad habit, I want you to own the fact that you are going to mess up. Okay. It's perfectly normal, and it's going to happen, right? You've got to embrace the fact that this is hard and it's going to take time. Remove the shame in that moment of the mess up, of not doing it, and then just move on. With any habit, there's really one golden rule, right? And that is, if you miss it once, that's fine, move on. But miss it twice, and there's a bigger chance that you're going to really struggle to kind of build that back up again. And again, like this could be anything in life. So, if you miss your workout one day, the next day, pick it up. I've noticed it for years and years now, especially with coaching and exercise stuff, is that what generally happens with people is you give yourself an excuse to miss one workout. That's fine. Okay. You can generally, but you see people starting to miss 2 or 3, you're going to fall off the wagon within a couple of weeks. And before you know it, you're back at square one again. So when this failure does happen, and failure is absolutely okay as well, right? I want you to know that failure is absolutely a part of life and there's nothing wrong with it. If you don't fail in life, you can't learn to succeed. Okay. When that failure comes, you need to pick yourself up and you need to dust yourself off and you need to keep going, right? That's all you've got to do with it. Okay. If this happens repeatedly, then probably what's happened is you've bitten off more you can chew. So just revert back to that original slide of like, right, what is something I can do consistently that I know is going to take me towards my goals and is one step in that right direction. Okay. So I've waffled on quite a bit today. I hope that helps you. This is a massive subject. There's so much more I could have gone into on it, but I hope it's helped you in some way. And I hope probably one of the things to get from this is to know that all of us struggle with it. I still struggle with it day to day. But the biggest thing for me, biggest takeaway I've learned over the years is that my mental health, my fulfillment, and my mindset are the things that really affect my ability to have control over my habits, whether that's good or bad. So if you're coming at all of this from a place of being mentally drained, not in a good state, then you need to take time to work on that first before you start doing this. Okay. Thanks a lot for listening to this. I appreciate if you've sat down and taken the time to do it. Have a good day, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.